This chart displays the deadliest tropical cyclones recorded. At the top sits the 1970 Bola cyclone, followed by the 1737 Hooghly River cyclone. And dropping into the number 3 spot is the 1881 Haiphong Typhoon, with a recorded death toll of exactly 300,000. 300,000 is an apocalyptic number. It is the equivalent of a major city disappearing entirely in a matter of hours. But look at this photograph of Haiphong from that era. You can see small, traditional riverboats and modest colonial arches. The French had only established this port 7 years before the storm hit. Colonial census records show that the entire population of the port in 1881 was only around 10,000 people. The math is impossible. You cannot have 300,000 fatalities in a town of 10,000. To figure out what actually hit the Vietnamese coast, we have to look past the encyclopedias. In 1874, French administrators built Haiphong for one specific reason: to serve as a deep-water maritime gateway, connecting the inland Tonkin region to their global trade network. This topological map of the Red River Delta reveals why that location was so dangerous. Haiphong sits at an extremely low elevation on the Cam River, completely exposed to the coast. Because the colonial planners prioritized rapid trade access over safety, they built the settlement with zero coastal defenses. There were no dikes and no levee systems. The bathymetry of the Gulf of Tonkin compounds the danger. The Gulf is a shallow, semi-enclosed basin. When high winds push seawater toward the coast, it gets compressed and funneled directly up into those narrowing river channels. By ignoring the environmental risks to secure a harbor, the colonizers built a geographic bullseye for a massive flood. In late September 1881, a tropical disturbance formed east of the Philippines. It tore across the island of Luzon, bringing heavy floods and significant damage. Instead of weakening over the mountains, the storm emerged into the South China Sea. There, warm surface temperatures provided the latent heat required for the system to rapidly re-intensify. We know how powerful it became thanks to early meteorologists like Marc Dechevrens, who painstakingly tracked the storm by collecting weather logs from commercial ships. One crucial log came from the SS Fleurs Castle. On October 2nd, a steamship much like this one sailed directly through the eye of the storm. The crew recorded a staggering barometric pressure drop to 958 millibars, alongside Buford Force 11 winds. Out on the open water, those numbers translate to sustained winds approaching 100 knots, whipping the ocean surface into massive, chaotic swells. These readings confirm the mechanical reality of the storm. It was a scientifically verifiable system, equivalent to a modern Category 4 hurricane. As the cyclone curved north into the Gulf of Tonkin, its counterclockwise rotation drove a massive volume of seawater straight at the undefended Vietnamese coastline. A 10-foot wall of muddy water surged up the river branches. Within minutes, it completely swallowed the port of Haiphong. The surge leveled buildings. Salt water flooded the surrounding agricultural areas, turning rice paddies into liquid plains and leaving survivors stranded on the few remaining patches of high ground. When colonial administrators finally assessed the destruction, they recorded approximately 3,000 fatalities. While that figure is nowhere near 300,000, it still meant that nearly a third of Haiphong's entire population perished in a single afternoon. The origin of the larger number comes from the economic assessment. Officials calculated the financial loss from the ruined rice harvests and the destroyed infrastructure. This ledger animation shows how the mistake happened. The total loss came to $300,000 in damages. Decades later, someone compiling historical disaster statistics misread a ledger, dropped the dollar sign, and mistakenly labeled the figure as human casualties. A simple misread label in an archive took a devastating, localized colonial flood and inflated it into a global urban legend. It took over 5 grueling years to clear the debris and rebuild the port. The French redesigned the city with wide canals and European architecture, eventually earning it the nickname the Venice of Tonkin. You can see the ambition of that reconstruction in the Haiphong Opera House, its grand neoclassical columns standing firm near the city center. Crucially, the local government also began constructing the massive dikes and flood defense systems that the original planners had ignored. Those defenses are constantly tested. The region remains highly vulnerable to Pacific storms, as seen with the 2024 landfall of Typhoon Yagi. Yagi mirrored the exact path and intensity of the 1881 system, hitting the same delta with Category 4 winds and putting over a century of coastal engineering to the ultimate test. Modern engineering gives us a fighting chance against the hydraulic power of the Pacific Ocean. But the Haiphong Typhoon reminds us that historical memory is far more fragile, capable of being completely overwritten by a single misplaced digit.